Hi, this is James Headley, and welcome back to the Living in Naples channel. Thanks so much for tuning in today. As it's been about a year since the Federal Reserve began its current interest rate raising cycle with a modest 25 basis point hike in March of 2022, I thought today that it could be informative to take a look at a macro level in terms of what the impact has been on the real estate market in Southwest Florida. Of course, it would be a gross oversimplification to attribute these results and trends exclusively or even primarily to the Fed's tightening. So certainly take these numbers and the title of this episode with the necessary grain of salt. I should also note that these figures are for the combination of the Naples and Marco Island real estate markets over the past year and through a little bit earlier this week in terms of the March numbers that I'll reference. With those caveats aside, before diving into the data, let me thank you for liking, subscribing, and sharing, and encourage you to keep doing so. To me, these were the three key takeaways or major takeaways from the data, some of which were intuitive, others perhaps less so, or perhaps a mix. Number one, median selling prices as a percentage of original asking prices fell below typical levels, and those levels in the Naples and Marco markets are generally in the 90+% range, and typically even north of 95%. But those ratios fell for much of the past year. In many senses, I would put this in the intuitive camp. Prices in place before March of 2022 were being set in a world of real estate frenzy where selling prices were basically hockey sticking upward. And as the Fed tightened and markets began to react, that endless upward trajectory was halted and sellers were forced to lower their asking prices to meet that new reality. In April 2022, for example, this started to be seen as the selling price to original list price median percentage fell to 87.6%. And there were 4 months over the course of the year that ratio actually crept back to those more typical numbers in the 90s, but 80s were the norm, with the low point in October of 2022 when that median percentage hit 79.3%. Secondly, and related to that first point, but perhaps a bit less intuitive, I would have expected that this ratio would have begun a steady climb back from the lowest points as sellers and their agents absorbed the new normal and started to price accordingly. However, that is not the trend, at least so far, as February and March of 2023 represent two of the lowest floor ratios over the past 12 months. And finally, number three, the median selling prices are exactly where they were a year ago, but asking prices have actually increased by 5.5%. Naples and Marco Island homes sold for a median price of $635,000 in April of 2022, and they're selling for that same $635,000 so far in March of 2023. If you've watched even a few of my other videos here on the channel, you know I keep repeating the mantra of stabilization and the new normal, and this just kind of reinforces that. It's been a roller coaster at times over the past year. If you look at month-to-month changes with median selling prices jumping almost 18% from December of 2022 to January of 2023, and then declining 14% from January to February. But as we take a wider view, here we are basically where we were a year ago in terms of absolute prices, even after so many Fed hikes. List prices have gone up and down from month to month as well, though not as dramatically as the eventual selling prices themselves. So what's this mean for those of you who are considering buying or selling a home in Naples or Marco? I think there are real action items here for both buyers and sellers. For buyers, I would say don't be afraid to make a fair but aggressive offer. Your seller may just accept, especially if they've not already reduced the price and if you have a good rationale for thinking the home is worth less than the current asking price. And also don't expect the bubble to burst because there almost certainly isn't one in terms of a bubble. For sellers, I would say price your home based upon today's reality, not what you might have been able to sell it for a little over a year ago. You'll likely do better in the long run, and you're certainly going to feel better about the experience, I would hazard a guess. As always, I'm happy to discuss your particular real estate needs, whether you be thinking about buying or selling, or if you'd like to recommend someone, I certainly do appreciate that as well. So please do reach out privately and at your convenience, and we'll have an opportunity to connect. Until then, thanks again for liking, subscribing, and sharing, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Take care.